Welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I am your host, Lisa, and I know why you clicked on this, so I'm going to keep this quick. I'm going to do the spiel, but do it quick. Today in the show, I had the honor of being joined by Ian Shelton of Militarie Gun. Maybe you know him from Militarie Gun or Regional Justice Center. Either way, I'm really glad you're here to check out this conversation. We don't do interviews over here, they're full blown conversations. And this is one I think you will walk away a bigger fan if you're a fan of Ian, or you'll definitely want to check out Militarie Gun. And that would mean the world to me because this is a band, admittedly, it was a bucket list guest for 2026. I said I was going to make it my goal to make this happen. And the second day in, we had this conversation. I said on this a little bit because I wanted to enjoy it just for myself, but I'm really excited to share this one with you guys. All links below, you know the drill, all that. Let's just get into it. Here's my conversation with Ian Shelton of Militarie Gun. The first question I ask everybody is, what are your first memories of falling in love with music? Whether there was a moment you had with it that you truly just, there was this deep connection that you found with music.
I think it was really early in my life. I loved Garth Brooks. That was one of the first things I fell in love with. Was I really love Garth Brooks, which is funny because I can't name a Garth Brooks song. I guess Low Places, that's a big one. But then Elton John as well was a very important early musician for me. I think it's really easy as a kid to gravitate towards Elton John because he's dresses loud and the songs are very fun, and I think there's like a whimsicalness in the music that I think can really speak to a child. And then like the first bands of my own were like Blink-182, New Found Glory, Sum 41, and then like got heavier with Slipknot and whatnot, but and then found my way to punk music. But it was just kind of like, I feel like a theatricality is a little bit of what I was gravitating towards, which is funny because I feel like I have not gravitated towards anything being theatrical myself until more recently. I was very shy about what I had to offer. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, early Garth Brooks, Elton John, and then my own stuff that like wasn't my parents' music was like the Blink-182, Sum 41s, and then the first bands that made my parents upset were Slipknot.
Yeah, same. I think my mom and dad, when I had like a Slipknot album, and I would have to hide it in my pillow because anything parental advisory, anything scary, like I think Korn was also in there too. And I
Yeah,
went through like a weird new metal phase where I was really into that. And my
we all
parents were
did. That
just
was
like,
the time. New metal was the era.
yeah. And it's back in some ways too. When I see like some bands now, it's like it's making its way. And it's always so interesting. So like even hearing Blink 182, like what era of Blink 182 would you say was that one, that kind of gateway with Blink?
It was when Enema came out. It was, all the small things was on TV, and it was roasting all the boy band videos that I hated on TRL. Like I think what was cool about that moment in culture is that because of TRL, you had things like Blink-182 and Slipknot contending against Backstreet Boys, and like that stuff was all happening at the same time, and that show fed it all into the same thing, of like hip hop videos. You're seeing Ja Rule, and you're seeing Blink-182, and you're seeing Backstreet Boys. So it was this really fun moment of culture clash.
Yeah. Yeah. And like even thinking back, like I can envision that music video. Like I can see it. Like as myself in my late 30s, like that was everything. And those music videos that just imprint on you. And even talking about like falling in love with music, has there been ever a time, I guess, where you had to almost like make sure you didn't fall out of love of it? Because obviously there's the business aspect, there's the touring, which are all great things I'm sure
Yeah.
musicians love to do, but they are very taxing on your mental health and so many things. Have you ever had to almost like reconfigure it to be like, all right, this is why I love this so much. I don't want to lose that love.
Yeah, it happened. I mean, there's a constant reassessment with it of like, I'm always in my mind threatening to quit. And the touring and stuff, as much as I love it, I really like being at home and writing. Like that's what I enjoy doing. And when I can't do that, it feels like this is all kind of pointless. Like that's what I struggle with. And that's where I start falling out of love with music, is like when I feel far from the instruments and I feel far from the ability to execute a song. There's been times like kind of the end of this last year, I was really feeling down and I wasn't feeling like I could write Military Gun songs. And I was like, I was writing, I think I'm writing great instrumentals, but then every time I went to sing on it, I would be like, you're just going to complain again? That's all you got, is you're just a complainy guy. You got nothing else to offer the world. And I feel like I was listening to podcasts and instead of music, and I was listening to books. And so it just kind of was like I wasn't feeding the whatever it is inside of me that is, giving music. So I kind of reassessed and found a new path, and I've been writing a shit ton, but it doesn't feel like Military Gun songs, so I don't know what it'll be. But it's yeah, you got to constantly check in, and you got to constantly figure out why you're doing what you're doing, and be in love with it. And I can't do something if I'm not in love with it. So I'm constantly there.
Yeah, because I can only imagine, like, even me, I have moments like doing this and this creativity outlet that I have for myself. It's like there's moments too where I'm like, all right, I don't know. I'm kind of done with this. I've done that. And then I have little moments where it's like, but it makes me feel this way. And I need that. Like I need that
Yeah.
creativity, at least in my life, like to fuel, especially when you're going through it, or like any mentally, like that it's almost like it's a distraction, but like in a positive way, for at least on my end. So I always like to ask that, because it just is one of those things I always wonder with people. Because when you get to a certain level, I mean, yes, in my realm of what I do, I'm not touring with it. I'm not on the business side. I'm not in that. And it's like that was always my biggest fear of doing anything like music businessy, because I was like, I don't want to tarnish that and then have to pull back and try and reconfigure that. So that's really interesting. I usually don't ask people that, because I'm like, I don't want that to be a negative, like you're not in love with it, but you have to go through waves of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's there's like kind of a postpartum when it comes to releasing a record, and this was the first time, like when we did Life Under the Gun, we already had so much for God Save the Gun started, and we don't really have that right now as far as Military Gun songs go. So it was like this was the first time I didn't feel like oh, I already know I topped this, where
Mhm.
before, we had Fill Me With Paint and Kick done way before Life Under the Gun came out. And I was like, those are great songs. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, what do I want to do next? And I've never had that moment of analysis. I've just been able to like trudge forward because I know what's next. And right now I don't know. So it's a very uh, confounding time.
Yeah, and sometimes it's great to not know what's next, because I feel like those, I'm not a musician. So if anyone listening, watching this, don't like torch me too much, but maybe not knowing, you may be able to pull some of the best stuff because there's no kind of expectation for that.
Definitely. I mean, that's where I'm at right now, is like the songs I'm writing sound like old Phil Spector songs, like committed by a lunatic. So it doesn't, I wouldn't have thought that's what I would be writing next, but here we are. It's what I gravitated towards. It's what was, filling me up and making me feel good, was a lot of like, we love 60s rock and 70s rock. And then I was like, well, what about the stuff that influenced the stuff we like? And I like almost want to go on a journey through all the influences of everything we love back to where like Military Gun lives. So I'm like kind of starting at the 50s and going forward.
But oh, yeah, I can only imagine like what will that sound like? So we'll have to
It's
see. And
demented. It's
yeah,
it's love songs about a divided society. That's like what I'm trying to write about. I'm trying to like write about how terrible the world is, but through love. Like it's hard to do.
yeah, yeah. And too, like I think about too, like this time last year, I sat down with Anthony Green and we were chatting about like music and mental health. And he kind of described music as like this entity. And it doesn't necessarily, because I made the mistake of, your music has really helped me and been an aid. And the way he kind of flipped it is, music doesn't need him to exist. It just is this entity and
Yeah.
this connection you can have. And it really changed my perspective because I was like, oh no, like, what did I just say? But it really allowed me that. And I guess for you, how has music allowed that connection for yourself to kind of tap into certain things that maybe, whether it be, I don't know, any other outlet you haven't been able to tap in, but something about that moment with music you can tap in?
I don't know. Well, so to go back to like kind of what Anthony was was saying is like, yeah, even despite all the many controversies, I'm a very well documented fan of Kanye West, and something that he says is like, you're not a fan of me, you're actually a fan of yourself, and it's like about the faith that the confidence of someone else can give you in yourself, and I feel like that's kind of what he's getting at with saying that to you. And I don't know, that's just kind of like, definitely it's like the working through in real time of giving me the courage or the ability to say things that I don't feel comfortable in my normal life. Like, I mean, God Save the Gun was kind of the exorcism of all of that, of like, I wasn't comfortable really admitting where I was at to anybody, but I was still comfortable saying it in the songs, and I was, turning some lines down more than others so that people didn't inquire about them. But it was like, I still knew I would be honest in that place, and I think art, if it's not honest, is like complete bullshit. So that's just the only thing I got to offer.
And like, how do you almost then protect yourself, right? Because like you said, people are going to listen to this, right? And they hear it, whether it is on a little clip or they go see you play or they go see you open. How do you almost protect yourself from those people, hey, this is what this song is, or hey, you said this, I think differently. Because I think it's just part of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable is what's going to happen there. So for you, like, how do you almost protect yourself in a
You
way?
can't. You can't
Yeah.
protect yourself. There's no protection. It's putting yourself out there as naked as you can. And I definitely, at times I'm like, oh fuck, I can't believe I said all this stuff in public. And then I have to go on interviews and reinforce all of it. And you're like, a huge part of me is like, oh, I wish I never talked about not drinking so that I had an ability to go back to it at some point. Like,
Hmm.
it's a really complicated thing of just airing myself out at all times. But again, I only know how to sell myself out.
Yeah. And I think too, like it is, it's such a vulnerable thing. But I think much like you said earlier too, like being honest, that's so important. And I think that's what gravitates towards your band for me. And especially this record is that honesty. And it really allowed me to like look at myself a lot. Especially like Thought You Were Waving. That song for me, at least, and again, here I am, like this is what it means to me, telling
Mm-hmm.
who wrote it. But it's one of those things of because my perspective when I'm struggling, and this whole podcast is the how music is a catharsis and things of that nature, and mental health and music and the intersection. And it's one of those things of so really going through it. And when I'm struggling, I'm sitting there, I'm that person that's like, you know what? I'm struggling. Why isn't so and so reaching out to me? Why isn't so and so doing that? But I'm not reaching out either. And it really, I was through a situation that like I don't have to get into, but it was one of those things that like song really shifted that for me to be like, hey, we're all going through it. That
Yeah.
person, and it turns out once I reached out to be like, hey, I'm really struggling, I'm really going through this. I mean, and this was someone I hadn't talked to forever, like months. It was just like, why did we do that? Why didn't I just take those steps of, hey, and then come to find out they're really struggling.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those moments, like really hard hitting on this record and that song specifically, that I was just like, I get this. This is a mirror to me. But again, you're talking about something different into you, but it just is that connection of
No, that
music.
that that is what the song is about. It's like, the thing I'm really proud of in it is, I saw you through the window of another burning house, and I feel like another is like a really important word to that phrase, and it's that like, you're looking at a block of all burning houses. You're looking at everyone's just in there, and it's normalized for everyone to be going through it. And I say it live is like, you really hope that people notice how hard of a time you're having, but the real difficult thing to realize is that everyone is having their own hard time, and it gets in the way of communication. And I feel like communication is so much of what I try to get out, and I'm really bad at communicating. So that, like, I'm not trying to like say that I'm good at this. I'm not good at checking in on my friends. I'm not being checked up on by my friends, really. It's like, but it's this wistfulness, this desire for that to change and get better at it. And I'm trying to get better at it, and it's a process. But yeah, it is just literally that everyone is having their own hard time, and it's if you're waiting on someone to notice, they probably will not.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I like mirroring my own life. And then when I talk to other people and I'm like, you have to listen to this song, you have to do this. And there were a couple people that have never heard of your band and they threw on this record and they were like, this is so good. I've heard the name. I've never heard of this band. And they really resonated with a different song. And I think that's just furthering that message of music and the community through your band you're doing because there are so many other people that they're like, oh, I love this one. And of course, like there's different ways people take it. So for me, I'm like, this was like my album of the year. And it's not just because you're here, but it's one of those things of like, it made me feel something and that emotion. And for you, when you're writing these songs and creating, and even probably singing live, do you almost have that out of moment, like that out of body moment of like, I feel this a totally different way, even when I wrote it?
Definitely. I mean, what I think about so often is like the people in my life's opinion of it, of am I being true to the lyrics? Am I saying something that someone would go, what do you mean? What are you
Yeah.
talking about? And I think about that, and like I think about people I've hurt, and they're in basically inherent cynicism towards something I would create. And that weighs on me heavily, and that's a huge part of the honesty of it is almost like if someone hates me, I don't want them to be able to poke a hole in my lyric. I want it to be so true that you can't deflate it, even if you don't like me. And that is, and so I'm constantly having to be like, a big one is the song Big Disappointment. Like the bridge of that song is I'm trying to live my life with nothing to hide and no one to fight. And it's like, do I have nothing to hide? Am I in a quarrel? It's like, that's a constant check-in moment every time I have to sing that song. And that's kind of what it feels like, is that I've just created this system of accountability for myself of having to live truthfully to what I've put out into the public.
Yeah. And and again, like the biggest thing with your band is that truth. And that's one of the reasons that I'm one of those people that when this record was going to come out, I already knew it was like I'm going to be into this. And I think it's one of those things, and then seeing it live also, and just the way it's delivered, it's one of those moments of like just being in that crowd, feeling that everybody is singing you guys play, and everybody is there for a different reason. Everybody feels a different reason for that. And I think that's why bands like yours are just so important in the scope of the intersection of music and mental health. And that's another big reason why I was like, this has to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's what I've hoped to do, so it's great that it's happening. I just think that so much stuff is fairly vapid and lacks intention. Like it lacks like a true artistic intention, and which makes me feel like it's somewhat evil. And so it's just like, all right, how do I not participate in that? How do I be the antithesis of that? And that's how we arrive here.
Yeah. And it's obviously too a song that hit me, and it always hits me when I listen to it. I won't murder your friend. And it really gets me because of the fact that when we talk about mental health and all of that, and it's it almost, and you had said in other interviews about how you've taken that option off the table for yourself. But as someone that has struggled themselves, it was one of those moments of, I never thought of it that way. I don't think of it that way, but maybe I should and understand that. And
That's what's kept me here. You know, is like the idea of who discovers your body, or and the impact that it has on other people. Like trust me, I would have chose to make my exit a long time ago had I not thought of the impact of it. And it, you know, I've said it 1,000 times, but we live in this culture of glorious martyrdom surrounding the concept of suicide. And it was like, all right, someone needs to say this and deglamorize it. And the only other song that I knew of that kind of got there was the 1975's "I Always Want to Die Sometimes," and he says that your death, it won't happen to you; it happens to your family and your friends. And I was like, it was only one line in the song, and so I was like, well, you know, let's expand upon that idea. And David Cho's words, which we use in the interview of him saying, you know, like, you're an asshole. It just reframing it as a murderer instead of something else. You know, it's like, you killed my friend. You would be mad at someone who murdered your friend. And so I just wanted to put that into people's hands. You know, I know that people listen, so it's like, all right, I felt like it was a moral obligation in some ways.
yeah, and I know you've said too a couple times in interviews as well about Military Gun being that light in the dark and showing that there is light to the dark. And I think for you, and listen, I know someone's going to say like, let's not get therapy hour, but like for you, is when you're looking for the light and the dark, is it almost like knowing that, hey, there could potentially be a future where there is light and not enough, not dark anymore, help you through that? Or is that something of like, you know what, you've got to get through it. And what's going to happen is going to, whatever the universe is going to do is going to happen. And you will hopefully find that light one day.
I hope. I don't have hope about it though
Yeah.
necessarily. Like, unfortunately, I'm a very depressed person, and I'm a very uh you know, I was complaining yesterday about all these beautiful things we have happening in our lives due to the music. I was like, I want to be home and writing. I don't want to go and play shows. And that because I've been having such a good time, and I feel like I'm having more good days in a row than I've ever had before, just like sitting exactly where I'm sitting now, making songs every day. And you're like, you know, I don't want to go do that, but you're like, one, you have to. But you know, I'm just prone to being unhappy. That's just who I am, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I'm there too. I am that person. I know a couple weeks ago I was complaining about something, and it's like I know people always tell me to reframe it like I get to do this. And I'm like, I get that. And I understand I should shift that of like I get to do XYZ instead of I have to. But it's tough. It's tough when you're in it, in the thick of it. And I'm like, there's days like I can't even get out of bed sometimes. And it's like, whether it's music or working on this, it shifts my perspective. But like, life is just, it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like the hard part about being in a band, which again is a complete liberty. People would kill me to have this ability to do what I do, but it's you know, a big part of it is that it's an unrelenting schedule. Like, your life is lived in the future and not the present at any point. It's about the next thing. It's about whatever else, and it's difficult to be like, you know, if we don't tour, we gotta go get day jobs. We gotta go do the things. So it's like this trap in a way. It's like I feel like my life is just self-made traps that I make for me to step into at all times. And again, it's there's nothing to complain about. It's amazing. It's a complete privilege and liberty. So I shouldn't feel that way. But you're also like, yeah, I don't know. Being at home is nice.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of us, at least on my end, if I have some people on here as well, they talk about touring and like the tour brain aspect where you get off tour. And I think I didn't even realize that. For me, as someone, I'm like, all right, my favorite band's coming. Okay, where's my date? Where's Jersey? Where's Asbury Park? Let me go. And not realizing what it takes to get there afterwards. Then
You
you
also
go
have like a
home.
postpartum afterwards too of like then because you don't really like fit in at home in a way. You're always gone. So it's like everyone has a rhythm and a structure that you just don't fit into because everyone's life is lived while you're gone. And no, I mean, again, nothing to complain about at all. It is amazing, and I do love doing it. So
And two, like something I wanted to ask too is obviously on this record, you have Isaac Brock on it. And I know Modest Mouse is an important band to you. So for you, and I always like kind of like to bring it back to like younger selves, because I just love that. I think it's one of those things of like when, especially when you're in your 30s and you can look back at your teenage self, like what do you think that teenage self of your like version of you would be like, wow, like we got to have Isaac Brock on this
yeah, it'd be
record in
amazing.
the same room.
I always wonder. I've always loved melody, but I'm also like, would teenage me like Military Gun? I don't know.
Hmm.
But definitely would be psyched on having Isaac on the record. That was life affirming shit, and that's what's so fun is like, the people who pop up and you're like, you were so important to me when I was in third to fifth grade or whatever, and like literally a huge part of shaping my personality. And yeah, Isaac, it was touch and go. It was like we didn't know if that was going to happen, but it felt so essential to bringing the record back to where it needed to be after I Won't Murder Your Friend. Of just like we needed a moment of hopefulness and someone to a little bit. His words, I hear a lot of people don't understand them, are kind of like a little brutal. It's like you can't talk you out of what you've talked yourself into. It's like kind of hinting at the self-imposed nature of the depression, of the problems, of like leaning into what is making you unhappy instead of leaning away from it, which I think is what we all tend to do. Is like, I'm unhappy, I'm going to kind of double down on it. And yeah, it was like a little bit of a like, slap in the face, bucket of cold water moment for the record that I think is felt really important to have.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things too. Like I love Modest Mouse. I love just the way his vocals are. But I thought again in that moment, I was like, I wonder what that's like to have that moment with somebody that you admire. Like what I'm doing right now, what I've done with other musicians as well. It's like I don't play, but I get to have those moments of like wow, that's a cool moment. And something I know you've touched on before is about like having pain, and that when you have pain, you can almost turn that into something. You don't have to just dwell and stay in your pain and just stay there. And it's it's easier said than done. I'll say that right now. I am someone that does stay in that and will. Um, for you, do you obviously think that writing music, and as we touched on before, it's one of those things that when you finish a song, you can almost look at like, okay, that chapter of that moment is almost it's there, it's not really done, but I'm able to grow from that pain or those emotions I felt because it's out there. I got that release out.
Well, I'm a dweller, and that's where this all comes from, is dwelling
Yeah.
on it. I do feel like it's not that it's like a feeling healed moment, but it is an artistically challenging moment because, like I said, like trying to write new songs, I'm like, you're really just going to complain again? It's like, what is the new version of what I'm trying to say? I feel like I said it to the best of my ability, and I don't want to just make the same record again. And so it's kind of this thing of like, all right, well, what are you gonna do now? What do you have to say that's not so entrenched in the past? What do I have to say that's current? And it's scary for me right now. Honestly, it's very scary to be like, because also I think that there's an expectation now of like we've made these heavy records, and it's like, oh, when I come out with the next record, like there needs to be like a identity and a idea behind the body of work. And I guess it's one of those things where you have to let life happen, and I'm not good at patience. So I'm like not allowing life to happen. Instead, I'm like, I need to have the next thing written. So it's hard because there definitely is catharsis, but it doesn't go away. And as much as you would hope it would, it's still there, and I still want to talk about it. And I feel like now I've just it's lent a little bit to shame about the being so engrossed in the past. And so I'm trying to move on from that shame.
Yeah. It's and even hearing that too, I think I needed to hear that too, because I'm one of those people. I dwell, I sit in it, and it's not good. I'm trying to change that. I hope to, but I think it's almost like just accepting that too, and saying that this is where I'm at, this is who I am, and what can I try and do better? What do I want to do to be better?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at in that. So I can definitely resonate with that a lot.
Well, it's like, I feel like sometimes, and culturally we've really moved away from this, but sometimes it's like tough shit. Move
Hmm.
on. Get
Yeah.
over it. Like you need to be told that not every feeling is the most valid feeling in the world. Like, yes, I've been hurt. Okay. You're not going to change it. So why don't you figure out happiness? Why don't you figure out doing something that makes you not feel crazy? And I don't have the solution, but I know that I needed to hear in my own life of like, fucking move on.
Hmm.
Get over it. Because at a certain point, yeah, you're just, if you're staying in the same place, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. I love that's, and again, like that's something I think I know we hear it often, but it just is so real because there's a lot of times, sometimes I know me personally, I want to stay in that same place because it's comfort. It's comfortable to
It's
be
so
that
comfortable. Well,
person.
we're tied up in nostalgia as well. And so much of media is nostalgic, and so much of our emotion is nostalgic. And so it makes it so there's really not this clear, like I think modern day is really marked by this arrested development of adults going to Disneyland, of like
Hmm.
all these things that are keeping you so far in your own past in a way. And it's obviously very tied to, commercialism and capitalism, in the way that like these corporations have kind of trapped us in this nostalgia bubble so that we don't move past them. But I think in that same way, we make it so we don't move past a lot of other things in life that we need to move past.
Yeah. I mean, and it is. Sometimes it's like I have a big view on nostalgia sometimes. I love it. All these festivals too that are going on. It's amazing. There's a place for them, but I'm like, I'm ready to move past that myself. Like I'm ready, like let's just go. Where then other people they cling to that. Like we just like they are those people that there's that comfort, there's that whatever it is, they're in it. And I think it's finding that balance too, and also
Yeah.
understanding that sometimes you have to like not be safe to move on from whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things too of just understanding that growth happens and things like that. Of a growth doesn't happen when you're safe. Like there's so many things I think about
Never
myself.
happens when you're safe. It's
No.
only when you're out on the ledge. And I think that's one thing that I'm actually good at, is putting myself out on the ledge and kind of making myself jump, because I signed myself up for more than I can do. And yeah, but that's the only time that it's possible.
And two, like before I let you go, because I don't want to keep you too long and I've enjoyed this so much, but what do you think has been your proudest moment of getting to put your pen to paper and make these connections, not only with people, but yourself and your inner self? What has been the proudest moment?
I feel like God Owes Me Money was just something I wanted to say for so long, and I finally figured it out. I think that the process of releasing this record in general has just been the most gratifying thing, of feeling understood by people and realizing that people actually do pay attention to lyrics. I felt like people don't, but the idea that I get, all these DMs about it and people saying what the songs mean to them, it's just like being understood is really hard. And I am constantly in fear of being misunderstood and being taken out of context. And that certainly has also happened with the record. But that was, the first couple days was really living on a cloud of just like, oh shit, people understand.
Yeah. I'm one of them. So you know what? Like it's so good, and it's one of those records that I think will stick for a very long time, at least for me. I hope for other people. And I can't wait to see what's next, but I'm also just like, I'm fine with still sitting with this record and
Yeah.
finding new things I love.
Thank you. Thank you for enjoying it. Thank you for being open to it. It means a lot.
Yeah. And this, again, I want to appreciate you for taking time for me for doing this.
Of
This was
course.
a whim of a tag and doing this. And this is really, really special. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we'll get on here for the next one.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Like I said, this is gonna be my highlight. My poor fiance is gonna be like, I'll come down like cloud nine, like over this thing. But you've just been the kindest too to like set this up and do this. And it's made me an even bigger fan being able to
Thank
do
you.
that and have that. So I really, really appreciate it.
I just want to give back, like it's this whole thing is reciprocal. It's like if a tree falls in the woods, like I could release records all day. And I used to release records and nobody was there to receive them. And without people like you talking about the record and putting it out there, like people don't know. So it means a lot to us as well that you do what you do. And yeah, thank you.